Tonight, a market meltdown. Tens of billions of dollars is wiped from the ASX as conflict in the Middle East sends oil prices skyrocketing. And Iran names the late Ayatollah's son as its new supreme leader. Hello, I'm Jeremy Fernandez. This is ABC News. A jury hands down its verdict in the sexual assault trial of the former New South Wales Liberal MP Rory Amon. A burst pipe sends murky water raging down streets and flooding homes in Sydney's north. The Matildas head to Perth after fighting back to draw with South Korea at the Asian Cup. And Australia secures its first medal at the Winter Paralympics. The war in the Middle East has set the price of oil soaring, raising the prospect of surging inflation and more pain at the petrol pump. Missile and drone strikes on oil production and storage facilities in Tehran and across the Gulf have sent markets into a tailspin. Australia's had its worst day on the ASX since Donald Trump's so-called Liberation Day tariffs were announced. The sharp sell-off shed up to $120 billion at one stage, and the price of oil has been heading towards $120 a barrel. At one point, it had surged 25% in a day. There's no end in sight to the crisis. Iran has now appointed a hardliner as its new supreme leader in a message of defiance to the United States. We begin our coverage of the war tonight with Chief Business Correspondent Ian Fernandez.
Roads lined with flames and pillars of fire over Tehran. Daylight revealing the impact of Israeli strikes on a major oil depot that's still burning and now raining oil onto the city's residents.
But you can see that the rain water is actually black, also saturated with oil.
Across the Gulf, energy and oil infrastructure has been pounded. From Kuwait to Saudi Arabia, scenes of destruction that have markets in a tailspin. And the price at the pump rapidly ticking up.
I used to fill it with $60 and now it's like $80.
We pulled up and it was $2.46. And when I filled up in the morning, it was $3.
US President Donald Trump says the oil price pain is a very small price to pay, claiming they will drop rapidly when the war is over. Cold comfort for farmers across Australia.
I can't believe that diesel's already over $2 a litre. This is crazy.
The national average for diesel is now $2.21 a litre, and around the country, petrol now ranges from just under $2 a litre on average to $2.17.
Every action possible is being taken to help Australians and Australian farmers and Australian industry.
It's not unusual for markets to act and behave like a deer in the headlights, waiting for the train to hit.
As we saw during Russia's invasion of Ukraine, fuel prices drive inflation. It took 3 years and 13 rate hikes to bring that price spike to heel.
We're also seeing higher prices for gas, for LNG, and this is causing concern that electricity prices are going to increase and skyrocket again in Australia.
National Australia Bank is predicting that this oil supply shock could send inflation up to 5%. This creates an enormous dilemma for the Reserve Bank. Higher fuel and electricity prices takes money out of people's pockets, reigniting the cost of living crisis. But it may be forced to jack up rates just to keep inflation in check. A bitter pill for the nation's more than 3 million mortgage holders. Ian Fernandez, ABC News.
And it's not just the price of oil and gas that's surging. The crisis in the Middle East is expected to start affecting the cost of producing food and shipping it around the world. Here's Alan Kohler.
Over the weekend, investors went from worrying to panicking. And when the market opened this morning, they were selling for whatever they could get and then kept panicking as the morning wore on. At lunchtime, beachcombers moved in looking for jewels in the Jetsam and prices rose a bit. And in the end, the market fell a bit less than 3%, with miners and banks hardest hit, led by BHP, which definitely wouldn't have fallen as much if it hadn't got rid of its petroleum division. Petroleum stocks, Woodside and Santos, were the only ones to go up. What investors are freaking out about is the possibility of stagflation, which is a combination of recession and high inflation, which is what happens when inflation is caused by a supply shock, as in the 1970s. In those years, in real terms, that is after inflation, the share market fell 74% and the bear market lasted for 4 years. Stagflation is toxic for share prices because not only do company profits fall with the economy, but long-term interest rates go up as well, reducing the valuation of those profits. A double whammy for prices. It's not just the oil price that's going up this time, but also jet fuel, which will push up airfares, the price of LNG and, importantly, the cost of shipping it, up more than 500%. Urea, which will push up the price of fertiliser and therefore food, and naphtha, which will push up the price of plastics. To say that the closure of the Persian Gulf is a big deal for the global economy and markets is an understatement, especially for Japan and Korea, where share prices fell the most today. The US market fell on Friday mainly because jobs fell 92,000 in February, reversing the big rise in January. The US economy has created no extra jobs for 12 months, but economists don't know whether that's because of Donald Trump or AI, or both. Here's a roundup of the commodity prices, and you know things are bad when even the safe havens, gold and silver, are unsafe. And food prices are starting to move. Wheat and cocoa up more than 5%, sugar 2.8%. Finally, tonight's anticlimax. The Aussie dollar is unchanged at 70 US cents. And that's finance.
Alan Kohler there, and there are concerns the war could run longer, with the regime selecting a hardliner as the nation's new supreme leader. The son of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been named as his replacement, an outcome the US president had warned would be unacceptable.
Celebrations on the streets of Tehran. Supporters of the Iranian regime heralding the appointment of a new supreme leader. More than a week after Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was assassinated, his son Mojtaba Khamenei has been chosen as his successor. The 56-year-old hardliner is expected to carry on his father's legacy.
Thank God someone became the leader who we are confident will avenge the blood of his father and will not compromise with America.
That sentiment not echoed everywhere. Death to Mojtaba. People in Tehran can be heard yelling in this video. The announcement was made as the Iranian capital was still dealing with the fallout from Israeli strikes on oil facilities. Authorities warning residents of thick polluted air and acidic rain. One woman sent the ABC this voice note.
Tehran has taken so much smoke that we can't properly see anywhere. The attacks have been this intense.
Another Iranian telling the ABC over text message, the air has grown heavy. Cars and houses are covered with soot. It feels as if black rain is falling from the sky. Gulf states continued to bear the brunt of Iran's response. The United Arab Emirates releasing footage of its air defences downing Iranian drones.
Target destroyed.
As leaders across the region sharpened their public criticism.
We deeply regret the unprecedented and unjustifiable attacks perpetrated by Iran.
We never expected this to come to us from our neighbours. It is a big sense of betrayal.
Iran has also fired barrages of missiles at Israel. Most were intercepted, but one hit a residential street in Tel Aviv. To the north, the Israeli military is intensifying its attacks on Lebanon, hitting a hotel in the heart of Beirut and killing members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard.
I tell you that there is no safe place for the Iranian branches of evil anywhere in the Middle East.
The death toll from Israeli attacks across Lebanon is climbing towards 400, including more than 80 children. The conflict prompting tens of thousands of Syrians who'd been living in the country to flee.
We don't have a house, nothing at all. We're going without knowing where we'll stay.
Uncertainty on the other side of the border, preferable to the danger they're leaving behind.
And Matthew Doran joins us live now from Jerusalem. Matthew, Donald Trump, as we said, has previously warned that any new Supreme Leader wouldn't last long without his direct approval. Have we heard from Donald Trump about this latest development?
Jeremy, good evening. We are hearing through Fox News that he is not happy with this appointment, but we do need to stress that his insistence he was going to have some sort of role in picking the new supreme leader of Iran was always going to be a stretch. This is a very different situation to, say, Venezuela, where the US tried to enact regime change just a couple of months ago and has been praising the new leader of that country in the weeks since then. The decision by the Assembly of Experts to appoint a new supreme leader of Iran so quickly is clearly a reflection of their desire to show that the regime is still in power, and that is despite more than a week of intense bombardment from the US and from Israel. It is also a reflection of this view that people like the Iranian president do not call the shots here, that the power is with the supreme leader. Now, Mojtaba Khamenei, he has been a feature of the leadership for some time, so the US and Israel will have a pretty decent idea as to what to expect there. But Donald Trump is saying any decision to end the war will be a mutual one taken with Benjamin Netanyahu. And given the Israeli Prime Minister and his government have said any new supreme leader of Iran will be a target, Jeremy, I think it's safe to say this conflict has a long way to run.
Matthew Dorton reporting live from Jerusalem. Meanwhile, the Iranian community in Australia is becoming increasingly worried about the fate of the country's women's soccer team if it were to return to the war-torn country. Their supporters want the government to grant the team members asylum. But with the players under strict lockdown and due to head home, their future is unclear.
They've really put their hearts on their sleeves.
The tournament is over for Iran, but the drama is only just beginning. Supporters surrounding the Iranian team bus as they leave their final Asian Cup match on the Gold Coast, warning they could face punishment if they're returned home. The fears arose after this moment. What's being viewed as a silent protest when players refused to sing the national anthem in their opening match. The reaction from the regime was scathing. Traitors during wartime should be dealt with severely, this state media presenter said.
So we don't know if these girls are going to be arrested, if their family is going to be under more pressure, if they're going to be executed, if they're going to be sexually assaulted.
Our responsibility now is to continue to work as hard as we can on the AFC, FIFA and also the Australian government to ensure that every bit of pressure is applied to make sure that the players are safe.
The exiled Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, has also weighed in, writing, "I call on the Australian government to ensure their safety and give them any and all needed support."
If asylum is requested, I have confidence that the government will give it due consideration.
Decisions on visa matters are made by Home Affairs, and where it's appropriate to do so, we'll be providing further information.
The players have been kept under a strict lockdown, so it's uncertain whether they want to seek asylum in Australia. In any case, they're in an invidious position. If they do seek asylum, there are fears their families in Iran could be persecuted. If they return, they could be persecuted. Even the question of how they'd go back to Iran is uncertain, except that it would involve a long and dangerous overland journey.
With the players due to leave the country any day, the future for Iran's women's soccer team is desperate and uncertain. David Mark, ABC News.
And there'll be more analysis of the war in the Middle East on 7:30. The former state Liberal MP Rory Amon has been found not guilty of most of the charges he faced over the alleged sexual assault of a 13-year-old boy in 2017. But despite more than 3 days of deliberations, a jury has been unable to reach a verdict on 2 charges after hearing how the pair met up following an online chat on a gay hookup app. The former politician is now facing the prospect of a retrial.
As a 27-year-old aspiring politician in 2017, Rory Amon kept his sexuality private. But it was his private sex life and meeting up with a 13-year-old boy that resulted in 10 criminal charges. They chatted on a gay hookup app and then Snapchat, where naked photos were exchanged. The ex-politician claimed the boy said he was 17, while the complainant believed he gave his age as 15, creating a critical issue at trial. The age of consent for sex in New South Wales is 16.
Do you regret not asking more questions about his age?
They met in an underground car park toilet. Mr Amon accepted there was activity including oral sex, but in the witness box he insisted nothing that I saw changed my belief that he was 17. The complainant testified about a second meeting in the same location and feeling repulsed during alleged sexual acts. Mr Amon denied there was a second meeting. In 2020, the complainant learned Mr Amon's identity from a COVID-related newsletter. He made a formal complaint to police in 2022. The same year, Mr Amon again tried to contact him on Grindr. The jury returned not guilty verdicts on 8 charges stemming from the alleged second meeting, but they were unable to agree on 2 charges from the first meeting. The key issue was Mr Amon's insistence that he held an honest and reasonable belief that the complainant was older. It will now be up to the DPP as to whether there will be a retrial. That may be revealed when the case returns to court in April. Jamie McKinnell, ABC News, Sydney.
A 43-year-old has been charged with murder over the fatal stabbing of another man at a campground in the state's north. Police were called to the campsite northeast of Tamworth yesterday evening following reports of a fight. They say a man in his 50s died after being stabbed several times in the chest and neck. Daniel Mark Kilkeary was arrested on the spot and did not apply for bail.
The males were known to each other. This was not a random attack or a random incident. They were in the camp area at the time.
A 41-year-old man who's been charged with murder over a fatal stabbing at a home in Sydney's inner west will undergo a mental health assessment. Police attended a house in Concord yesterday for a welfare check. They found 37-year-old Tamasan Fongfinho with a stab wound to his chest. He was treated by paramedics but died at the scene. Chandra Irawan was arrested at the home and charged with murder. At Burwood Local Court, there was an order to undergo a medical assessment because of concerns about the accused's mental health. He remains in custody. A burst water main in North Sydney has inundated properties and disrupted supply to thousands of homes. Residents say there was a similar incident back in 2018 and they want the issue fixed as soon as possible.
Look at this.
Raging rapids on the streets of Sydney's North Shore.
Ringo, ring the SES.
Up to knee high, like down this laneway here, yeah, it was torrential.
This morning, a water main burst under a bus stop in Cremorne, sending an unexpected flash flood through neighbouring homes.
It came down the street at very, very high speeds and it actually knocked out one of my neighbour's walls.
Up to 20,000 properties face supply issues as a result, stretching from Lindfield down to Clifton Gardens on the harbour. Some had no water, while others experienced low pressure for several hours. The blowout also caused another rupture in Mossman.
Oh my God.
The runoff made its way into the harbour and some residents' tap water. It took almost an hour to stop the torrent.
This is the second time in 8 years this street has been hit by a major water main burst. Sydney Water has apologised and says it's investigating what caused the breach.
Moving the concrete slabs and undertaking the repair. So yes, this is a large and complex repair.
Sydney Water says full service has been restored to all the affected properties. Julia Andre, ABC News, Sydney.
A major road linking Sydney and the state's west has been shut down because of safety concerns. The Great Western Highway has been closed between Lithgow and Mount Victoria after engineers spotted a growing crack in an ageing bridge. The closure was called as the government was cutting the ribbon on the state's newest road, the M12 motorway in Western Sydney.
4 years and more than $2 billion in the making. The 16-kilometre M12 motorway is about to open.
This motorway will be a freeway, you won't pay a toll on it, so you've got a highway to the new airport and therefore the rest of the world.
Stage 1 connects the Northern Road at Luddenham with Elizabeth Drive at Cecil Hills. It'll join up with this striking interchange, taking drivers straight to the new Western Sydney Airport, which opens later this year. The 30-metre sculpture is called the Great Emu in the Sky. Impressive by day, but even more dazzling by night. Later this year, Stage 2 will connect the free motorway with the M7 toll road. Some workers on the project have already road tested the M12, but after it opens on Saturday, it's projected to take 25,000 cars off other local roads every day.
this is going to be a game changer for these communities.
And this road's likely to be especially well utilised once the airport opens to passengers, because the metro rail link won't be ready in time.
That's been delayed by the current Labor government.
As one road's about to open, another has been closed. The Great Western Highway's now shut in both directions between Mount Victoria and Lithgow after engineers noticed the ground beneath the road was moving.
They could see it visually, that there was opening cracks, and they were quite concerned about that.
Traffic is being diverted via Lithgow.
We don't even have a decent road and rail system to Sydney that is reliable, secure and safe.
There's no word yet on how long the closure will last. Nick Dole, ABC News.
Hundreds of remote Northern Territory residents could be stranded in Darwin for weeks as a major flood emergency isolates entire towns in the top end. Residents of Palumpa had to be flown to safety, and in Daly River the water is still rising. Those in Katherine, where floodwaters are starting to recede, have spent the day assessing the damage left by a once-in-a-generation flood. After 3 days without food and an alert to boil water in place, the local supermarket reopened for a few hours this afternoon. But authorities are urging caution as emergency services work around the clock. More rain is on the way.
We've got them sheltered for the short term. We've got them provisions provided for them for short term in Darwin, Katherine and Mataranka. But the long term will come up in the recovery phase.
2 Australian men have been jailed for 16 years by a court in Indonesia over the fatal shooting of a Melbourne father in Bali last year. 32-year-old Zivan Radmanovic was killed when 2 masked gunmen, Mevlut Koskin and Paye Middlemore Tupo, stormed a villa in the middle of the night in June. Mr Radmanovic was staying at the villa with family as part of birthday celebrations for his wife. At trial, the 2 attackers told the court they'd been sent by an unnamed Australian to threaten another man in the group. Tupo confessed to shooting Mr Radmanovic, having mistaken him for the other man. It's a controversial form of therapy that's growing in popularity. Eye movement therapy, known as EMDR, is used to treat PTSD and other trauma, but critics say it could be just a placebo. Its use can also prevent some from accessing justice through the courts. Emily Baker has this Stateline report.
EMDR therapy gave Katie Bird a different outlook.
EMDR genuinely changed my life.
She'd sought support from a psychologist to deal with sexual abuse she suffered as a teen. She credits the treatment with her decision to go to the police.
I would have never made a report if I didn't do EMDR. I just wouldn't have been able to.
Hi, come on in. This is EMDR in action. It uses bilateral stimulation, usually eye movement,
just going,
to help the brain process distressing events.
Take a pause. What we think happens is when we ask people to think about the memory, we get them to put it into their working memory. And then by focusing on something else, it helps the brain to process the memory in the way that it wasn't able to at the time.
EMDR is an effective treatment. It's as effective as the other exposure treatments.
2 years after she first spoke with police, Dr. Bird was told prosecution would not proceed because she'd had EMDR.
Their argument was that my testimony, what I could explain happened to me, was altered.
If we look at the evidence, EMDR doesn't actually lend somebody to actually having false memories any more than any other kind of intervention.
The Commonwealth GPP says it's unable to comment on specific cases, but that each prosecution is assessed in line with its prosecution policy. EMDR advocates say that Dr. Bird's case isn't isolated.
I certainly believe that the guidelines should be updated to reflect the latest evidence, because I don't think current decisions about the role of EMDR is consistent with what we know.
EMDR therapy is incredible and it is life-changing. I think that more people are probably going to realise that, and I don't want it to stop people from being able to seek legal justice.
Forging a path for other survivors. Emily Baker, ABC News, Sydney.
To sport, the Matildas say they're frustrated with their performance in their final Women's Asian Cup group game, which has forced them to travel back to Perth for the knockout stage. Their 3-3 draw with South Korea in Sydney last night means they finished second in their group and will face either China or North Korea in the quarterfinals.
The Matildas are on the move again. Second spot in the group meant a 5-hour flight to Perth instead of staying in Sydney.
We're professional footballers. We know how to recover, to travel. We do it all the time in Europe.
There's no time to dwell on the frustration of the draw with the quarter-final quickly approaching.
We needed more goals. We didn't get them, and we're going another route. Simple as that.
Yu Jong driving into space. Australia needed to win to top the group, but the visitors struck first.
And it's a dream start.
The Matildas had a strong finish to the first half to take the lead.
First time finish, and she does so with aplomb.
But that momentum didn't continue, with South Korea scoring 2 quick goals after the break, and the Matildas threw away chances to hit back.
We didn't manage the moments well with the ball. That's the honest truth.
Defender turned midfielder Alana Kennedy scored a late equaliser, her 4th goal of the tournament.
I think you saw the Matildas' mentality at the end of the game, which is really pleasing. So yeah, we'll bring that into the next match.
Steph Catley left the field early with a concussion and would be a big loss if she's ruled out. A tournament record crowd of over 60,000 people attended, with many fans likely to miss out at the 20,000-seat Perth Rectangular Stadium for Friday's quarter-final. Amanda Shalala, ABC News, Sydney.
The rugby league star Zach Lomax has turned his back on the NRL, switching codes to sign a 2-year deal with Super Rugby's Western Force. Lomax recently settled his legal dispute with Parramatta, which barred him from returning to the NRL without the Eels' consent before 2028, in the wake of the postponement of his move to the breakaway competition R360. It makes Lomax eligible for the Wallabies at next year's Rugby World Cup and follows extended discussions between Lomax and the Force.
He came here with us, spent a few days with us here last year with his partner Kayla, and we continue to work with him and over the last little bit, and he's been really, really engaged, so we're pretty excited about this announcement.
The opening ceremony flag bearer Ben Tudhope has won Australia's first medal at the Milano Cortina Winter Olympics. The 26-year-old from Sydney finished second in the final of his category of the snowboard cross, with Italian Emanuele Peritone winning the gold. It came after the 2022 bronze medalist Tudhope had injured his shoulder earlier in the competition.
There was a small expectation of medaling here, and so, yeah, to get that dream done and dream come true is absolutely amazing.
India has become the first nation to win back-to-back T20 Men's Cricket World Cups with a 96-run win over New Zealand in the final in Ahmedabad. Sanju Samson top-scored with 89 as the home team posted 5 for 255. The Black Caps were dismissed for 159 as India won the tournament for a record 3rd time. Let's take a look at the weather now. It's been a wet and humid day in Sydney, with temperatures confined to a narrow band. Overnight lows around 18 to 20 degrees and tops of 23 to 25 in the metro area. And relative humidity late today reached up to 99% in parts of metropolitan Sydney. The showers have been widespread along the coastal fringe and adjacent districts, occasionally reaching inland into the central districts. Some of the heaviest falls have been around Newcastle, with more than 100 millimetres at Adamstown. As a result, temperatures in these areas have also been subdued today. These conditions are the result of rain-bearing onshore winds, which have brought significant flooding rain to parts of southeast Queensland as well. The skies are clearer in western New South Wales with a drier air mass. These showers are likely to ease off on Wednesday and Thursday before the next round of showers arrives. And those monsoonal rains across the top end look set to continue for a few more days. Tomorrow, more rain's expected in Darwin and Brisbane. Melbourne will see cloud clearing, and it'll be mostly sunny in Canberra, Adelaide and Perth. You may see showers continuing from the northern rivers to the Hunter tomorrow. Any falls are likely to be light, and it'll be mostly dry, though partly cloudy on the northern tablelands. It'll be partly cloudy in the Illawarra and adjacent tablelands, tending sunny on the south coast and on the snowies. In the remaining districts to the west, it'll be dry and mostly sunny. Daytime temperatures here will generally be above average. Winds will be light and variable in the south tomorrow, turning more northeasterly after lunchtime. Sydney may get a few lingering showers tomorrow. Overnight lows between 18 and 21, tops between 25 and 28 degrees. The sun will rise at 6:49 a.m. The clearing skies tomorrow lead us to a warm and sunny Wednesday before the next round of showers arrive on Thursday, and that'll bring daytime temperatures back down again. That's the latest news. Thanks for your company. Here's Sarah Ferguson.